Welcome to the show. Today's topic: saving money. Just before we start, I'm not gonna give advice, and I might digress into something that sounds like advice. It isn't. It's just in my own digression and my own experiences. But I want to talk about saving money, not because it's necessarily a thing men struggle with. On the contrary, kind of, for the most part, men save more than women, just average, right? So, I mean, you could check out the statistics. You do the research yourself. Just kind of, you could Google like saving rates among men and women, or statistics, on savings among men and women, and it'll direct you to a lot of sources, and they all kind of say the same thing. So just don't take my word for it, but for the most part, like I said, men don't have a problem with saving money. It's something that the younger generation uh, doesn't seem to be following, and the numbers also show that more young men under the age of, let's, for the sake of this argument, let's just put them 28 to 18, 10-year window, either have very little to no savings. This is with a higher number of them living at home. Then that's just, so the numbers aren't showing are showing that they're just not as familiar. Maybe the parents or wherever they're at aren't showing them what saving money is, or the value of a dollar, and maybe that's the reason, or a reason, why we have such a way of thinking of these youths. I don't want to sound too judgmental, because like everything, I think we go up and down, and we have good moments and bad moments, and certain things come in and out of culture and affect us and change us. So I mean, we have to be kind of fluid what's going on today. For 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 a majority of men, saving money at a later age becomes more of a common thing, just more likely because you're just interested in buying stuff, taking girls out, having fun, not really concentrating on next week, next month, or 10 years from now. You're just focused on the here and now, which what makes being young and no fear, and having a longevity outlook, and what it does to your habits, right? But as you progress through the ages, you develop a sense of, hey, maybe I should save money. And it's not even then, from the age of 28 to, let's put it all the way now to, you don't really, in that 12-year window, you don't really save for necessarily your retirement. You're saving for vacations, you're saving for a new toy you want to do or use, you want to save for a truck you want to, or a car you want to purchase. So your savings, yes, you're saving money because you recognize that that's the only way you're going to be able to buy the stuff you like. Then from your 40s to your 50s and beyond is when you actively start focusing more on, hey, I'm 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'm going to retire, and I need to have a savings, which is the way most people look at or go through savings. Which there is a lot of information on YouTube from a lot of smart people in financing or finances, in saving, investing, and so on, that will tell you that that progression that I described is the ultimate formula for poverty. What needs to be done is a re-education and a refocus on youth, saying, "Hey, the earlier you start saving money, then after that, investing your money and making sure that you live within your means, at an early age before you get indebted. And I'm not here to get into the argument of colleges, and I mean, it's definitely a discussion for men to have. Like, I myself, am familiar with the burden of children. And now we shouldn't say the burden of children that will come out, but when children go off to college and sometimes they're in the pursuit of their dream, and in your helping them to achieve those dreams, there's many parents, and many of them are men that put that scholarship on their credit or put that scholarship on their dime and actively pay for their kids to go off to college. If you teach this kind of stuff earlier on and put more of an emphasis in some of this stuff, I just cut it off. I know I just jumped from one to another. I just getting into the whole college and money debate. To me, it doesn't really matter. It's one of the things that was getting tossed around in the political debates you hear in the last 8 years or whatever. So whatever, I have an opinion, but then I'll really digress, and I'll look at my clock and it'll be 20 minutes in, and I haven't even started hitting any of the. So without trying to go off on a tangent and an avenue where, again, it just takes the focus to the wrong, not the wrong area, because there's definitely correlation between a lot of different areas that then lead to other areas being affected. But anyways, the point being is that saving money should be focused earlier on. That way, towards the latter part, or not even the latter part, just towards the middle part of your life, you have a financial small little fortune, or depending on and what you do, a fortune to at least live out the next 50 years, from the age from 50 to 100, in modest comfortability, with science and medicine. And I know you're seeing a lot of people dying at 70s and 80s, but the projection is that with a good diet, with certain advancements in the medical field, of course not all, but most, eventually passing 100 with ease, and it'll become a normal thing, which is a great thing. And especially with the, like I said, the advancements in just quality of health, and quality of life, that's it's a good thing. So the quicker we could teach people, or some of these young kids, to save, it's just how much better us as men and younger men are going to be off when they reach that mature age, where our, maybe call it strengths, but even with saying about medication and stuff, maybe that even changes, where men are becoming, it's not outside the normal. You see 60, 70, 80 year olds, with nice bodies and being toned and being healthy, still running in marathon, and we change just the way we think. Now, are we there yet? Probably not, but are we going towards that direction? Definitely. And I wouldn't be surprised, maybe not in my lifetime, or maybe it'll be close to the end of my lifetime, where that's going to be, a progress where we could definitely see it, see a death rate drop from certain ages, where we're just lasting longer and being able to enjoy more life. But anyways, what is saving money for, right? So, and again, this isn't a class to show you what to, and how to save your money, or what to do and do this, and use this method, and this is how I save $2,000 to save, to save for a trip to Disney. Like, none of that stuff. There's so many useful, more knowledgeable people that have tried it, and great ideas, and again, some that I use personally to save money. That is not the reason I want to talk about saving money. Like I said in the beginning, for the most, men save more money than women. But I gave an example of how in certain periods of our life we don't save money correctly, because we're saving money, but to buy something that we're not going to get a return in. And then later on, the focus then becomes on savings. But then, like, we see so many end up having to work past a retirement age because they didn't plan right. Yes, I get it that men tend to save more, but we honestly don't save in the correct manner. And I don't know if it's the lack of information because maybe maybe I'm biased because I look for the information, and the knowledge, just the results came back. There was a lot of information out there, useful information, and you're like, okay, the information is out there, but people don't apply it. And I'm not saying I'm gonna solve it, but I'm saying the way that. But what I do want to do is shed a spotlight on a certain little thing that goes unnoticed, and it only comes, it gets put on spotlight city by city, state by state, only on under certain times of year when it's beneficial to certain parties, or when it's a holiday season, or when something gruesome like a crime happens. But before I get to that point, we'll get to that bridge. But what is saving money for? Like, right? And of course, everybody knows, of course, it's just have more money, stacking up your bread, and I could buy a car, I could buy this, and buy, that's the mentality that I was talking, that young age mentality. And you might be older and say, no, I'm saving for, my retirement, for my daughter's wedding, for my son's, whatever, for X amount of reasons that you might be saving money for. And all of those are completely acceptable, dope. Save your money, do, whatever reason, whatever calling you have to why it is that you're saving money. Awesome. But there should be like three main things as to what you should save money for, because we all know about losing jobs. We all know about businesses going under with the COVID. Can I give a better example than just the COVID? We know how expensive everything is, and then we have dreams of what to buy, like a big house, building some kind of riches, for us to have. Life happens, and but our dreams are happening with us. So again, there's a lot of stuff that we could save for, which is great. But we need what I think is the what we should do is focus. Well, what we should do is teach this a whole fucking much more earlier in high school, at least. When they're already able to get some kind of summer jobs, like at least start with some financial knowledge. It should be it's probably the only. There'll be debate then onto what strategy or what method to use. But anyways, we're not even there yet. Again, you could save for everything. You could save for a date, and you should if you're not making enough. And again, I've used those examples in other areas, but I narrowed, all those examples are under the umbrellas of this when I finance my life. So, or not even just my life, it was just the way it would simplify it easier. You could always branch out and customize it the way you want to. But like everybody knows the emergency fund, and depending on which guru you listen to, it could vary from X amount of money, divided, or times expenses or whatever. Like I said, you could Google that information, or you could just go on YouTube and put emergency fund. And trust me, the results that you get and the information and knowledge that is out there for free, you won't regret it. That will never be time wasted, because you'll go down a very, very good rabbit hole that leads to a change in mind. Once you go down far enough, you can't just go look and head back. But once you go down there and take a real, not a severe, but a real interest in your financial stability, in your saving rate, in how do you even save correctly, is some of the things that you could just put out. You could Google out there and get the information, then apply it and see if it works for your life. But my point is to having an emergency fund. Why? Because you could get terminated, just like you slack up on your job, not waking up on time. You're like COVID could happen, or a virus could happen and cost you your job, and all of a sudden you don't have enough to keep the lights, to keep the bills, to keep this, to keep that. And yes, we have assistance, but we can't rely on assistance like we've seen time and time again in many of these news, articles of certain cities and certain states not being able to pass certain legislation to help have the money for the unemployment. So there's been lapses where families have currently been falling apart, and it's because there was a study right before COVID. I remember seeing it. How I don't know if it was like I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but it was a pretty high number of Americans that didn't even have $1,000 saved up in the bank account or in a savings account, and that was so alarming. And I think one after another news outlets picked it up, and it was pretty much spread around through the whole thing, where it became a point of topic in many of the shows that, or not shows, but the YouTube channels or financial channels, will then regurgitate that, information, and that vibration started happening. And then on, I don't know, again, call it coincidence, then or a coinky dink, then COVID happened. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people get tossed into this uncertainty realm that no one likes. And I've seen it, and the way I'm seeing it in this cultural dynamic is pretty freaking amazing. Whether it be in the dating and in the finances and people's preparedness, people's paranoia. I mean, all of it right now is in full display. And if you're a nut like me that likes all this, mental, what do they call it, psychopathy, or not psychopathy, but psychiatry, and just the evaluation of human mannerisms, and just the way us as a species operate right now. I mean, I get it. It's tragic, and I'm not trying to put a interesting spin on it. Or, I mean, for me, it's interesting just because, like I said in other podcasts, I haven't been hit by a personal bug, so I could only come from that angle. Like, I haven't lost anybody, or no one has really been sick because of it. And I'm not even, saying if I did, it would still be hard, but I still feel the same way. What's happening right now is just so, it's intriguing, and this is just a case study for so many things, and so much information is being collected right now, and I hope that it's only going to be, it's going to lead to us being a little bit more progressive also. So anyway, and we see that the lack of having an emergency fund pretty important now, looking hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterbacking, whatever you want to call it. That if you would have had a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, in a savings account, would that not make you feel a little bit better in these uncertain times, even though you're still going to get assistance, but you have a nest egg, you have a cushion, you have something to rely on. Given well, again, the gurus say what the gurus say, and it's important. Some say only have three to 6 months savings in a savings account, and this is not even just about a savings account, but that's what most people are going to associate when saving money is savings account. And some even take it to a year, and most of the other ones say, oh, that's too much, you're never going to use that too much. Obviously, the COVID changed that. You can never have too much in a savings account. Why? I'm not saying you can't invest. I'm saying the more you obviously grow your emergency fund, where you could like have accessibility to it, to buy groceries, to buy stuff on right here and now, as opposed to having a bunch of invested, and having to wait 7 days or whatever period to sell those and get your money into your account. It could take up to 10 to 5 to 10 business days, so it's not really like the quickest thing. So now we have to kind of reevaluate what an emergency fund is, given what we are currently now in. And I get it, it wasn't something that we ever experienced before. It's something that all of a sudden you're starting to hear certain news and saying, oh, it's going to be with us for long periods of time, if not forever. So there's no better day than now than to start living different and start putting more money into the emergency fund, because all the old knowledge, I'm not saying it has to go away, because that leads into a paranoia mindset, which you don't want to have either, or leads into a, oh, I have to push it, because ultimately you do want your money to be invested, to make money back for you. That's only that's only the smartest thing to do. But I think it's more important now, given just the times, to be able to have that comfort, especially as men, knowing that if you're single, my life is okay, because I live below my means, and I save, my savings account is pretty nice. Plus, I have my investments and blah blah blah. Okay, that's fine. Or I'm a married man, and I know that my kids and wife are taking care of that sense of stability. And you hear it from people. Ask them, when you knew a family that was, looked like they were thriving, and all of a sudden COVID happened and the truth came out, how much they were struggling, how much they were living paycheck to paycheck, how much that, they were just kind of all over the place, and strung out so thin, because no one thought that, hey, I have my 3 to 6 months as an expense, of expenses. Well, we saw when that pandemic started hitting, and that fear kicked in, how many people didn't go through all their money that quickly, through all their savings, because now everything was at a premium. Some stuff was at a premium. Everything was being out, so people went through a lot because they were stocking up. They didn't know what they were doing. They were buying more food that they were not supposed to. If you would have had a little more, or maybe a lot more in this instance, the way I'm trying to say it, a lot more, you could have done the same fucking spending, but you would have had that, that nest egg is there, and it's big, or that reserve is big. And knowing that reserve is big, I'm not saying is you have to continually feed it. The numbers up to you, but what's been thrown around, which again, it's still amazing knowledge, and should probably be listened to, or should be listened to. Shouldn't say for the most part, should be listened to. But now I think the number of just that emergency fund has to go up. And by emergency fund, I don't want to do it different. I just mean like a savings account. But the only way I could say emergency fund and get my point across is by fucking calling it an emergency fund. But just literally, your savings account has to be nice and fat. So yeah, you could cover a year's worth. So what? You want to push it up to 2. If you have the money, balance your money. I'm not saying feed your kids fucking a couple of beans and a few rice petals, or rice little grains, along with like a quarter of a tortilla with a full glass of a tall glass of water. I'm not saying that either, but I'm saying build more. If there's nothing more that you get through this whole 2020 COVID thing, having a lot more money, period, right? And duh, who doesn't know that? But it's because we didn't. There's no one to blame, or there's nothing wrong about it. It's just that before this happened, the knowledge that was given to us was working, right? Because it gave you enough leeway to get back on your feet. But when there is so much uncertainty, all of those rules go out the window, because now we hear about maybe not opening certain businesses up to like 2021. 2022, some stuff up to 2023. You're like, wait a minute, how can you plan a business, a future? How can you plan anything as just a human, given that? So now, if you're lucky enough to be able to be working, your shift in mindset should happen and say, hey, I need to make money and save money. It's all good to invest, just like everything. It's all good, but you want to make sure that your savings account, where you could go in there, go to a bank. Not saying that it's all, but I'm not preaching chaos or anything like that. So if you have a nice savings account with stuff, you could pull it, transfer money from your check into your savings, whatever. That's what you want to have, because during these kind of times, that's what's going to feed your family. That's what's going to get the toilet paper. That's what's going to get, the comfortability that you're going to need to have during these trying times. And also, that's one of the, not anyways, I went off on a long little explanation on that. So that would be like one reason that I think. But the other two is purchases, right? You want to buy stuff. You like to have a certain lifestyle. You enjoy certain things. So when you understand purchases, hopefully it's not just because you have a certain kind of salary, which is what most people do. And I'm sure people are hearing the honking outside, but you gotta push on, as they say. So we know what the how expensive everything is, so we intend to live a certain kind of lifestyle. But like I was saying, we tend to pair it up with our salary. So if we're making 50 grand, we're spending like almost 45 grand. I mean, and I'm not taking taxes, so don't get anal with me. So if you get 50 grand, there's people spending up to 45 grand in their the way of living, their rents and stuff like that, what they want to buy, their purchases and all that stuff. And they only live this small sliver, this 5 grand, to be able to, like on my next live, build wealth, which is the third one. So those are the three things, like, yeah, it's what you should be saving money for, is like the emergency fund, purchases, and then for wealth building, obviously. And those are the key ones too, that for me you should focus on. And again, then you could kind of branch out more and more and more. And for a nerd like me, it becomes really really fun to start breaking it down that much, more and more in depth, and see how much more you could take it to. But that's just my own craziness. I don't condone that. So again, the purchases, how stuff. So if you have a savings plan for the second one, the purchasing, when you do purchase some of this stuff, it's not going to leave you in a place of making up, and then other aspects of your life don't neglect or don't fall back. So I know guys that are single out in the market, looking for a girl, and go take out on girls. Well, guess what just came out this year in 2020? The PS5. So that thing was pretty pricey. So a lot of guys, like I was explaining earlier, save the money to buy the PS5. So some of these guys were saving 4 months just for the money to buy the PS5, along with like an extra controller for most in the game. From what I hear from the people that I know and from what I've seen. So they spend a nice little fortune for their entertainment purposes, which I'm not neither saying good or bad, but that's what they did, right? They saved their money to buy a PS5. Now they can't buy new clothes. Now they can't buy really good food. Now they can't take girls out on a date. But okay, you got your PS5, right? You get to go, and you might be eating, cup of noodles for a few months and bumming off, going over to maybe a friend's house or your mom's house, or but you're pretty much at the max. You know what I mean? That's the sacrifice that they meant, instead, because before they were saving for maybe a relationship, a date, maybe a couple of $100 to take a girl on a few dates or whatever, or a couple $100 in movies and enjoyment, and their own kind of other form of entertainment. But because they saved up for this one time buy, then they buy it and they get themselves into, because now they have to save, obviously, money again, like they were to enjoy the other aspects of their life. Where if you are, in this example, a gamer, you should have been saving since PS4 came, because you know that it's a purchase coming. If you know you have a habit of buying a couple TVs or a new TV every 2 or 3 years, then why not just save that money anyways to begin with? Because hey, I bought this for 64-inch for $600, so I'm gonna save another $600, but I'm gonna save $1,200. I'm gonna get a big one. I'm gonna get whatever's out whenever that's at, but I'm gonna put money into saving for those purchases. Or I know I'm gonna, I have a shoe addiction and I love to buy shoes. Well, you have to save up first and have a savings for buying these purchases. So then when you start your normal flow, not because, oh, I save 5 grand, so now I'm gonna buy X amount of shoes. No, now when you save that 5 grand, I'm just throwing 5 grand out there for this explanation. But once you save that 5 grand, then you go buying your shoe every paycheck. How you want to do it. how you always say, oh, when you, because I know a lot of people that, and the reason I say it because I know someone that said, oh, I buy the newest kicks, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I'm like, well, how much do you have in your savings account? He goes, psh. And I knew he didn't ask nothing because he's always asking motherfuckers for shit. So my thing was like, why that's just why. One is like advertising that you have money when you don't have money, just because you want to, again, AKA, or not AKA, but what people say now is that, you want to floss, you want to kind of throw it in people's faces that you could afford it. But instead of just putting a pause for a little bit, because shit changes so much anyways, if you pause for a little bit, save X amount of money, because you know your habits, you save a little bit, and then you just start on normal rotation, what you are doing when you're broke as fuck. But now if you're sitting on 5Gs and you're buying shoes every paycheck, just one pair, right? But if you have 5Gs, when you buy that pair up and you have a savings for those purchases, it's not gonna bother you. Your life continues. Nothing gets thrown out, and your sense of pride and your manhood, or this is also one of those things where you could throw to raise your masculinity or whatever. When you just know that you have the ability to buy stuff more than you want to, but not because you have self-control, because you're not going to do anything out of character. And when you were broke, you were buying one pair of shoe of your paycheck. So now when you have 5 racks sitting or $5,000 sitting in your account, when you just go on normal what you do normally, it's not gonna put you in the ground. It's not gonna put you in the negative. It's not gonna take you out from doing other stuff, being single, taking girls out, enjoying life. And that's why, saving for that, or I put that as another key aspect, the number 2 in my list after emergency fund, given current events. The second one, I went into details saying purchases, and just hinted at the other one earlier, the wealth building, saving for wealth building, not for because you want to live for your kids, because trust me, once death happens, they don't care about you, you're dead, but they care about your money. So you want to build wealth for yourself, and I could care less how much wealth you're gonna build, and I'm not trying to sound like a bitter person. You're gonna leave it behind regardless, but what you want to do is build wealth for you. You want to build riches and finances that are going to help you when you need it. I'm reading through my notes just to make sure that I didn't put this one. So, and I'm going to get to this almost right after this point. So, and there's a reason why I said that once you die, no one's going to care, because no one's gonna take care of you. No one. We want to believe, us as men. We want to believe that our wife or our current girlfriend or our kids are gonna take care of us. But odds are that they're not. Their odds are is that they sometimes forget. We become a burden on them, and statistically speaking, they are more likely to help the mom than the father, which is another unfortunate side effect, I guess, of us fucking being a man. But that's just the reality of it. So when I speak of wealth building, is for the later part in life where you don't have to rely. You live on your terms, and you do what the f you want to do, and go out the way you want. And as men, that is taking control of every aspect and saying, yo, yeah, my kids are gonna benefit. Yeah, my wife or my girl, whatever the hell scenario it is. I'm not here to debate that aspect. But that at the core of the action is, I'm taking care of me. I'm gonna make sure that I have wealth built up so that if I do die, I get to be buried. I'm not just thrown out somewhere. I'm not named a John Doe. That whoever loved me could go visit me somewhere. That I have a place to stay when I'm 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. That I have proper medical care, depending. That's what I'm talking about, wealth building. Not when I'm talking about, it takes money, obviously, to build that kind of wealth building, but nothing where you're going to be flossing, because none of that shit was pretty, right? None of that. I mean, some of it, being able to control your life is super. That sounds enticing, but when you go down to the nitty gritty on what that really means, it's not really pretty. It's not really sexy. It's not that. I'm 80 years old with a 20-year-old supermodel in my freaking convertible, Porsche. Yeah, it's not that sexy dream. But honestly, that shouldn't even be the top priority, because again, the wealth building is who's going to take care of you at the end of your life, or when you can't take care of yourself. Who's going to do it? And most kids don't want to. They have their own life. They like humans that we are, we're self-centered and we're egotistical. We are only self indulgent. And I've seen that in more than one occasion, sadly, in just way too many forms, sadly. But yeah, those three things: emergency fund, purchases, and wealth building is what you should be saving money for. And if you focus on that from a young age to throughout your life, you're going to have a better quality, because not only have I seen it, it's just the way it has to be given the way times are. Like I said, purchases, if we all like toys. Shit happens. Obviously, you want to have that emergency fund, that nice little nest egg, that savings account that's going to be here and now, and purchase, because crises happen. And we're thankful for governments and local authorities coming through and all that, hoorah rah rah stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to take control of that, of being able to have that sense of security. And as men, then we don't have to take our excuses, or in our mind make excuses and then blame outward. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because I should have done. Oh, no, because our brain, again, like what have you said before, is that our brain is always going to try to heal. It's always going to try to make you feel better. It's always going to try to keep you alive until it can't. And that's when it, like I said, it gives up. And that's when again, your soul or your spirit just gives up, which leads to a path that we want to avoid, and that we want to spotlight, so that more men are aware of certain things that we can do to control our fate, that I see that we're not doing. And I'm hope I'm getting the message across. Maybe not in the best way yet, but I'm working on getting this into a more. I'm working on speaking more and speaking better and getting more of what I want to get out without the digression so much. The point, or get the point across to whomever's listening. When we take those, like I said, it leads to just a trickle down effect in how we feel, how we act, what we expect, our standards, and it just nothing but a positive effect that it leads in men, if these three aspects are in control. Because dating is a purchase. We're purchasing food, we're purchasing restaurant, we're purchasing experiences. Emergency fund, like I said, right now and even before. It could be more local to some of people, like earthquakes in California, that their companies had to wait until open up for 1 or 2 months, and they weren't as lucky to get some of that, financial aid or whatever, and they had to rely on their savings and wealth building. Because like I said, not everyone's going to want to take care of you, and not everyone's going to want to be around to in the later parts of life. Which is why it leads me to the point that I was going to say, like, why it's important is because too many men are homeless. They don't save money, they don't wealth build. They kind of lived only on that purchases. They didn't have any savings. And I mean, here in Vegas, we have one of the worst homeless issues in the country. And yeah, you could say, oh, it's because the gambling capital of the world, but it's not. It's not. It's people that, men that have been discarded by divorce, that have been trampled through, that have been through, their last whims, where everything is taken from them, and they have not even a bucket to piss in, as they say. And there's many more. There's drug addiction. There sure as hell is gambling people in there. For many men that don't have a structured savings plan, many of those men become homeless. Some of the people that we say and laugh at that are crazy on the street, because they weren't able to build some kind of wealth. They can't afford the medication, the treatment to get, to be able to heal themselves. And when that doesn't happen, they're unemployable. They become a burden. And when you become a burden, what do? People like, we're like the men become stray dogs, and they just let men loose and wander off on the street. Next thing you know, hey, what happened? Wait, we don't know. He just walked off one day and disappeared, knowing damn well that they were the ones that just opened up the fucking door because he was a little bit senile, and then never claimed them, even though they were. Oh, I don't even. Anyways, I read that story a couple of weeks ago, and it still irritates me now. But just the amount of men that are homeless, and again, here in Vegas is pretty bad. But I'm pretty sure I've been to several cities here in the United States, and it's bad. I was in San Francisco right before or right after COVID happened because my daughter goes to school in San Francisco, and when I got into San Francisco, the amount of homeless in that city was ridiculous. And don't even get me started in California, in Southern California, in Los Angeles or anything like that. There's so many homeless, and I've never remember it being that many or being able to see it that easily. And maybe that's just me. Another reason why men need to save more money, or why it's important, is again, many men are living in studio apartments, a little in bad areas where it's just what they could afford because X amount of reasons. Maybe age got to them, maybe child support, maybe lack of skills, whatever. They end up in these situations where now they're living in a horrible area in a small little studio, at a much older age, and it becomes a security issue. I'm sure people have heard where people, older gentlemen live in a bad area, and the next thing you know, he has a breaking and entering. And to us, we see it like, oh man, he lived in a horrible area, but we don't go past that to understand why he was living in a horrible area. And a lot of these men that are down in those is not because they're druggies, or you know whatever you want to associate negative on them. It's that because of the lack of knowledge, or because of a horrifying, one-sided divorce, or because he was a great father and put everything on his credit for his kids, and then at the end of the day, when he needed it, because he ended up having symptoms of X disease or whatever, and but because the husband now might, or of the girl or the daughter or the wife of the son can't stand the father, or don't like the father for X reasons, they won't take care of him, which then again leads to what else do you do? Work some meaningless job that pays enough to get you into a studio apartment in the worst area of your local city, for you just to die in as a insignificant rat in a corner. How sad is that? But it's something that no one wants to talk about, because talking about homeless is talking about real shit, about how you didn't care about all these girls or women or family or men either, and just a bunch of people that say that they care but are the cause of a lot of these people's homelessness, that go around preaching that they're oh my god, I'm so good, I'm so this, knowing that they have been the devastation of someone's life, and they are probably out there homeless, because they weren't strong enough as a wife, as a daughter, as a son, as a friend, as anything to help that man out. And that's why the importance of saving, so we don't have to depend on no one, and we get the treatment, we get the help, and we know that our outcome, our future is going to be secure, and we're not going to be thrown out like garbage, and thrown out like were yesterday's news out in the world, where some men are not fit to be out in the world alone, with no roof over their head, and homeless, through no fault of their own. I see many, and I should have said that too, or a lot of people living with roommates, because not at the end of the day, but for many, that becomes the only option, where you could afford something nice. And it's no different where in California or New York, where it's so expensive that you could only afford to live a certain kind of lifestyle, is with roommates, because it's just so high. And for a lot of men, sadly, they do end up being roommates. And I've seen, and this is something I want to talk about in another podcast, but I've seen men, Marines, that are roommates with druggies, the worst scum of the earth, but because that's all they could afford. And this guy, because whatever, he might be younger, and because he fell on some money, he got on this apartment and he wants to save more money to do more dope. And I get it. You have a choice to not live there and not. But when you really don't have a choice, when you need a roof over your head, when you need just something to be able to call a place you live or lay down and put your head down, a lot of men settle for roommates that are so negative, so evil, so abusive, just in such a bad toxic environment that, again, at some point that just gets frustrating and leads to men just becoming homeless because they can't stand the people that they live with. So that is, why it's important for men to save, so that all these scenarios that sound horrible to all of us doesn't have to happen. Doesn't have to come into fruition. And even on this last part here, I even wrote something. I wrote, no matter when you start saving for your future, just know you can't rely on your kids, on your friends, on your wife, on your girlfriend, on your brothers, on anything. So protect yourself. And that's the message I wanted. That's why it's important for men to save money, cuz we're protecting ourselves. Because now, honestly, I don't even know if my kids, I mean, I hope, and I'm not speaking on anything on them, but no one knows whether their kids are going to take care of them. We all think they will, but just check out the homeless in your city, in your state, or whatever. And if you really get bold, go talk to some of these and get their story, and it'll change your outlook and what you think about some of these men that we see out here in being homeless or living in areas that are aesthetically appeasing to us, or in a safer area to us. And the way that just that lack of knowledge saving is, and what to save for, living within our means, is something that other channels are doing way better. And again, I'm not trying to give any financial, that they're just doing an outstanding job. And that those messages have to be brought down to a younger and younger age. And I don't care when you're starting, whether it's right now, whether it's next week, whether it's a few years ago, whether it was a decade ago, or what place. But if you're a man, the ultimate thing is that you have to be able to save as much as you can, and have that security that you're going to be in control of whatever aspect is going to happen. And if you break it down just to three basic ones: your emergency fund in case shit happens, two, your purchases because shit's expensive, and the ladies like things, so we got to do it if you want to be around the ladies. And our outlook, once we reach a certain age, we don't want to take care of us. We have to protect ourselves in every one of those aspects, so we don't fall in financial ruin, so we don't fall into a place of hopelessness, and then we don't end up homeless, where no one gives a fuck about us because we became a burden. Sorry for all the cussing. Well, not really. I do cuss a lot. I hope I made you guys think. I hope I brought a little bit of awareness into why it's important for saving, and a little bit of a spotlight into just the huge homelessness issue that we have to get a hold of. And given this whole pandemic thing, it's even more important to find a way to protect our homeless population, because honestly, for many of them, it's just not their fault. So share the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time.